Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Tycoon Online 2 Star Channel. Now, in this episode, I'm just going to be continuing off not long after I stopped last time. Pretty much I just continued playing, added some more planes, and I now have 230k net profit, which is really not bad considering I started just a few days ago. As you can see on the leaderboard, I've been climbing steadily up to where I am now, gaining one or two, places per turn. But as you can see, I'm about to start slowing down a lot in my growth because the difference between each person is starting to get larger and larger and larger as I near the top 10. Now, my goal is obviously to finish first, but I'm not sure if that's really possible this game. Because there is a lot steeper competition than I'm used to. But anyways, I'm just gonna do the usual episode and start making routes. Wow, London is untaken. Now, I love making routes to London, but I can't find anywhere to land in Asia, which has been a problem quite consistently. Like, as you can see, out of all the cities I even have slots in London, like, I have like one place to land, which is here. So that sucks. Wait, what? Why is that not set to maxed? Your prices should always be maxed. Why is that not set to max? That's weird. Have I been accidentally making routes not? Okay, it was just that one route which decided not to set its price to max. Yeah, I always use max price because it's just when you use small airplanes like an Illusion, you should always use max price because if you can't fill up a route with anything less than max price, then your route is not good enough because you really should be able to charge max price on a small route at least. Now, as you can see, for most cities, like, everything has already been taken to London. So that in itself is unusual because usually London is my most popular city. Like, I make the most routes to London simply because there's so many available which are worth taking. But that's probably not going to be true this world because obviously there's a lot of people who think like me in these worlds. So I'm going to have to play it out steadily and see how I can go. Now, I think once people start learning how to use stopovers, this entire game will become a lot more difficult. Because stopovers are just so useful. Like, as you can see here, most people have more planes than routes, or very few more routes than planes. And I'm probably one of the only ones with an exception to that rule. Like, I think everybody's planes and route number is very, very similar. But I have already a large lead on my routes compared to planes. And that is so even with 17 unused TU-124s now, or 134s. Now, I would use those planes because obviously it's not good to let your capital sit around and not do anything. But unfortunately, I just don't have the time to request all the slots, which I would need to fix that. So that just has to be the way it is. Now, Athens is surprisingly big in this world, which is something I recently noticed. So I'm gonna start taking advantage of that and making routes to Athens. Now, this world in general is, quite competitive. Like, as you can see, there's so many routes taken that I'm not sure if the World Traveler doesn't keep going up like it has been recently, quite a bit actually. If I'll even be able to keep finding routes because I really need a larger World Traveler index, like 3,700 plus, in order to kind of be able to find I guess what you would call infinite number of new routes, like where the number of new routes is greater than anybody could ever be bothered to take. So, of course, most of the good routes worth taking, like I'm doing now, are untaken. Like, I wonder if we'll ever hit a point in that game because as the World Traveler goes up, the number of kind of viable routes increases not linearly but kind of exponentially. So. Yeah, I'm really hoping that we get a good World Traveler Index, and that is unfortunately one of the biggest parts of this game, is just getting a world with a high World Traveler Index, because it makes the biggest difference when it comes to how much fun you can have in the game, because having a small World Traveler Index in your, when you're trying to have a fun playthrough is just miserable, because you're just stuck to using all the smallest planes and having very, very limited routes to make. So, yeah. I wish that was one thing that could change about this game. If I could change anything, was that would make a more consistently large or high World Traveler Index. So trying to get a world with a good one would not be so difficult. Now, One thing I do like to do to counteract that kind of luck factor is simply by what's it called? By starting your world later in the game, so you can already see how big your world is going to become. But obviously, I don't really have that choice to make in the star servers. There's only one or two at a time, so you really only get to choose from one. And of course, that just means I have to live with whatever world traveler I get. No, man, can I find any cities that I think are worth taking to Atlanta or Chicago? Yeah, as you can see, even if I look quite carefully, very, very, very many of these routes have been taken. Let's see, where can I find a route even worth taking? I'll take anything 250 plus, but I'd rather find something bigger. So I'll do like whatever this city is right here. But I wish I could find bigger ones. Anyways, yeah. As you can see, it's pretty standard playing this game. It's just making stopovers. Stopovers. More and more stopovers, the better, pretty much. Just each one makes so much money for how much the plane is worth. Like an Illusion's, what's it called? 64M will make about 2 million per stopover route, so that's like 4.4 million ish. For Illusion 62M, which means it pays itself back in about 16 turns, which is very good for a long range plane. Like to pay itself back, in 15 turns, a large plane like a 747, 300 million to buy, would just need to be making an immense amount of money. Like, I can't do the math in my head, but it's much more than it possibly does. So, let's see. Yeah, just trying to scan for cities which have been missed out on. Now, this is usually one of my favorite layouts. Is from North America to Europe back to Asia again, but as you can see, I'm having a lot of trouble even doing that because just so many of the routes are just taken. There's Budapest, it's too far. Here's some place in France, there's not enough slots. Man, difficult. Southampton. Southampton is getting bigger, so I guess I'll do that. No, very nice, very nice. Yes, as you can see, it takes longer to make a stopover route than it did if you watched some of my other episodes in the less competitive worlds where I just like rapid fire, just like you don't really even have to think because they're just everywhere. But in this world, currently at least, there are very few. Now most of the stopovers are not are starting with a smaller city in the Americas and then a smaller city in Asia. But the problem is, the cities in Europe aren't particularly big. Like, Athens, Rome, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, none of these even get close to the size of Seoul, Shanghai, Beijing, towards a later game. What's it called? They can get to a decent size, but not really nearly the scope as the North American and and Asian cities do, with the exception of London. So because of that, I'm really wondering what's going to happen late game, where even more routes have been taken. But I won't worry about that for now, because I'll just hope the World Traveler does its thing and goes up so that every route becomes viable, or more or less every stopover route could become more viable. So yeah. Anyways, continuing on, let's see if I can make what I have labeled as challenging stopover routes, which is stopping in Europe. No, there's Lyon. That's a good city. Lucky. I really wish there was more 300 cities in Europe. That'd be so fun. Yeah, just new planes, sweet. Now I have 5 more Illusions, and I ordered some Boeing 747s to see if I could to see how much they make or lose. I really don't know, so I'm gonna use those hopefully on just one turn pass and just make one new one, but that's pretty hard to do. I want to figure out exactly how much one 747 makes compared to one Illusion. Now I don't know the maintenance cost for each one plane individually, which is a problem. So I don't really know of a way I could find out, besides like just, what's it called, making one route, waiting for it to completely fill up, and then seeing the difference in my profits. But then again, there's still inconsistency, like fuel price and other things like that will make my test not perfectly accurate, which stinks. So yeah, I'm really not sure how to measure the. Wow, I've been running on unsatisfied staff and still been making good money. That's impressive. Let's look at my routes list. So satisfaction does affect the occupancy, but what's it called? If we switch to low occupancy mode, um, yeah, it seems to be that my lowest occupancy is still 100%. Like with the exception of the stupid what's it called routes, the competition routes. Yeah, literally everything is 100%. Like that is how powerful stopovers are. Like even though I have unsatisfied staff, I'm still maxing out the amount of money I can make. For every single stopover, not a single one is even dropping any occupancy at all. I know it is an uptick, but that's still impressive nevertheless. So I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna keep that there and see how long it takes before I start noticing the effects. Now, obviously, if you use bigger planes, this is a complete no. You can almost never have imperfect satisfaction. That's one problem with trying to run bigger routes is you need perfect satisfaction, which means you can't decrease the seating size, because then your satisfaction will go down and your occupancy won't be enough to maintain happy faces all across the board. So that pretty much means it just forces you to make less money than you possibly could with a stopover. So once again, another argument for the stopover route. Anyways, what is the city here which I needed more slots in? Here, sure. Yeah, I just generally need more. I generally need more slots everywhere. That's one of the things when you start up the game, which you have to do more than anything else, is just like once you start to get to the stage I'm at where you're making good money every turn, is you want to start requesting slots everywhere across the world. Just even though you think you might not use that city, as long as its numbers aren't atrocious, like you're getting 250, 300 plus, just buy slots there. Slots really, when there's only 20 like per city or whatever, it really costs nearly nothing. Like I'll show you guys my expenses tab. They really don't cost very much at all. And just having it there so that when you need to make a route, you can make it right away is so useful, because having to wait 15 minutes before you make a route will probably cause you to not actually make that route, because you probably end up doing something else, leaving the game and not actually doing that. Like as you can see, where is it? Slot expense 27k. I have 27k slot expense at this point in the game. So as you see, it really is nothing. So yeah, that's just useful, like just knowledge to know, is don't worry about your slot expenses. It really means very little. No. Oh wow, look at this! I can't find anywhere to land from this Italy. I guess I'll land in Toronto, because that's getting decently large actually. Wow, it's large Toronto. Well, Charlotte's big too. How about Boston? Boston is, let's see, 600. That's mediocre. That's 700. That's nearly 700. What about Phoenix? Is Phoenix mediocre? Phoenix mediocre. 600. That's pretty mediocre. About 650 though. That's getting somewhere. That's getting somewhere. So good to keep in mind. Like, 60. I don't even have slots in a lot of the big cities because it's simply not worth connecting to the what's it called? Those cities to little ones, because people will take those to other big cities every time, no matter what. Like people will take Denver to let's see, Venice, because they're both decent cities, no matter what. But a lot of people won't take the big cities to the really small cities, because there's very like a very large amount of small cities. So people obviously sometimes will just overlook them and not really consider them as like good, I guess. And that kind of leaves you with all the big routes to all the big cities to small cities kind of routes, which are just as good as medium city to medium city. So anyways, wow. Why do people take everything to New York and Chicago? Man, people know how to play this game. New York and Chicago are, of course, the primary, New York, Chicago, and LA, but LA is too far away at this stage of the game, are obviously the primary, like, main routes in what's it called, in this world, or in North America. And without them, the world feels really the North America feels really lackluster, because Atlanta's average, and LA is too far away from everything, so, yeah. Well, Atlanta's actually a lot bigger than a lot of cities in Europe, but it's not the biggest city for North America. But obviously this completely depends on your world. Last game I played, Atlanta was larger than Chicago, I'm pretty sure. So it's really luck dependent. But anyways, guys, I think I've been rambling on for a little bit too long now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm just going to buy some new illusions. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.